Hello and welcome to Skip Squad Chronicles with me, your host, Dizzy Skips. Every episode, I sit down with someone from our amazing jump rope community to hear their unique story, the ups, the downs, and all the skips in between. Join us as we share laughs, insights, and the spirit that makes this community truly special. Let's jump right in. Ladies and gentlemen, cats and kittens, this is episode 6 of the Skip Squad Chronicles. With me, your host, Dizzy Skips. I love the jump rope community and the people I've met. This corner of the internet is a happy place where we improve ourselves and help others through skipping rope. Because it takes so long to get to know folks through social media, I decided to start this podcast where I can rope jumpers into an interview and have a fun conversation to find out what makes them tick. Jumping rope and shuffling have improved my life in so many ways, and a lot of the credit goes to the support of lovely jumpers like my guest today. So, in our 6th skip session today, I'm thrilled to talk to my friend Peta. She is at Peta Pocket Rocket on Instagram. I will put that in the show notes. She's a fun member of the community and comes from the land down under. So if you don't know Peta already, you can find her on Instagram, and let's jump right in. Peta, thank you for joining me. For those of you who aren't in the room, or we just talked for like 5 or 10 minutes and I didn't have it recording. So we are actually recording now. Lovely to have you here. So I mentioned you're from the land down under. Can you tell me a little more about where you're at and what's the weather like now?
Sure. So I live in a little Mineral Springs tourist town about an hour 15 drive north of Melbourne. So if you know the shape of Australia and you have a little island down the bottom, which is called Tasmania, I'm sort of in the state on the mainland just above there. So a lot of people think that the whole of Australia is beaches and palm trees or the outback. I live in neither of those. I live in a Central Highlands. So we have 4 distinct seasons with a smattering of snow in the winter and, warm summers. So a bit different to maybe what a lot of people think Australia is.
Yeah, I mean, it's our winter now, so it's your spring or getting close to
spring.
summer?
Yeah.
Yeah. So good jumping weather?
Excellent jumping weather. We always, I had a German friend come and stay with us for Christmas one year, and she could not believe that in most, families on Christmas Day in the afternoon, the kids have a water fight. So she's used to the snow and cozying in with eggnog and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I've worked with folks who've just never seen snow in person, and it's so weird to me. I grew up in Alaska, and so I have seen snow. And here in Minnesota, it's actually colder than Anchorage, where I was from.
Yeah.
So I've seen you use this hashtag on Instagram. I think it's Jump for Joy 100 or something like that. And so this is a commitment to jump for 100 days. Is that correct? Can you talk a little about that?
Sure. So I suppose my motivation, apart from obviously, being fit and healthy, is to not take things too seriously, including myself. So that's why it's called Jump for Joy. The 100 is for the 100 days. I did a 100-day challenge myself earlier in the year, and I had a lot of women my age. I turned 50 this year. Could not believe that I was doing it and how I progressed. And so I wanted to give other people an opportunity to go through the same process I did with support and encouragement. Then I set up another 100 days, which is the Jump for Joy 100, and we're at day 78.
That's so cool. Congratulations. That's quite a commitment. And I know from having to reschedule this interview that you got COVID. So you're just kind of getting over COVID, correct?
Yeah, I'm kind of on week 4. I had a lot of pneumonia and bronchitis as a kid. So this is the 3rd time I've had COVID, and I get it like everyone else. And then 2 weeks after, you go through the normal COVID, I end up having this kind of asthma-y type thing. So the last 4 weeks of my jumping, I would have liked to have been progressing even more than what I have been. It's been a bit frustrating, but that's, I think, one of the beauties of doing a 100-day challenge as opposed to, say, a 30-day is, particularly if you're doing it with a group of people, is no one has 100 good days. in a row. And so you have to kind of get over yourself. You have to be okay to show up when you're not all bright and shiny. But also you're doing it long enough that then people see you be bright and shiny again. So you kind of get to see someone go through all their different colors.
So how many, you mentioned before that you have like a group of people that all started around the same time,
Yeah.
and you
So
encourage each other. And like, I think you said that a bunch of those people are relatively new to skipping.
yeah, we started off with, I think, about 50 people. They're all
Wow.
women. Beautiful Aaron, who you interviewed on a previous podcast, says, "Can I join?" I said, "Of course you can, but you really don't want to be in the private chat because there's a lot of talk about menopause and um, things that I'm sure he doesn't want to be privy to." And he said, "That
Right.
is totally cool
Yeah.
by me."
Yeah. Right.
So
Keep
we
it.
have a private, yeah, we have a private group chat. You know, some people have fallen off, which happens. You know, life happens.
Sure.
But there's still, you know, I think there's women from 6 different countries in there,
Wow.
and some people post a reel every day, like I do on my
Mhm.
profile. Others are a bit shy and they just want to post a little video each day in our private group chat.
Sure.
And some people, you know, post every few days, but say, you know, I've done this or I've done that.
Hmm.
And I don't jump every day. I usually do rope flow 2 times a week as well, just to give my body a rest.
Hmm.
So some of them are just starting to be introduced to that as well. But I have also a couple of more experienced jumpers than me in the group, which I'll shout out, which is Skipping the Midlife Crisis, which is
Oh,
Laura.
Laura.
Yeah, Tamika's in there as well. She's been a bit busy with a
She's
play at the
awesome.
moment. Brandy, Blee Wonders, and Pam from Pam Jumps. So that's just to
Nice.
name a couple. But most of the others are relatively beginner.
Yeah. So I'm curious, when you started, you said you're a couple days out from your 1 year anniversary, I think. So when you
Yeah.
started, how did you learn?
I started because I saw a woman who was kind of having a bit of a midlife reset. Her handle is 50 Sister. I think she's sponsored it by Dope Ropes. Um, but she did a lot of a shift in her midlife, and I was inspired by her. And then just through her, you know, that whole rabbit warren you go down. So I just started watching what other people were doing and just started jumping. And then a few people like Laura reached out, and you know, I just love the jump rope community, how they have this real combination of really supporting, knowing when to help, knowing when not to, you know, like no one kind of just jumps in and goes, "Don't hold your rope like that."
Right,
You
right.
know, like there's always a delicate dance, and
Yeah,
I've found that really really helpful. Um, yeah, so mainly just through different people I've connected with on Instagram.
cool. Yeah, I'm always, well, first of all, I'm impressed that, people said nice things about my jumping when I first started posting videos because, I was struggling to learn just like the basic, alternating feet kind of stuff. And it was great that people patted me on the back. But looking back at some of those videos, I think if I saw that guy, I would just send him a DM and say, "Hey, dude, I think your rope is a little bit too long because your arms are way out here and you're doing this." And so I have mentioned that to a few people where I noticed that they were kind of struggling and getting 10 skips in and then getting tripped up and whatever. And I just know once I realized how to size my rope correctly, it just made a world of difference.
Yeah, and look, we had a bit of that when we started this 100-day challenge. Um, And I kind of, like you, I would just kind of say it. And then if it wasn't taken notice of, I just wouldn't say it again. So,
Mhm.
um, but most people really, they really want that help. And I try and find something that they're doing really well as well.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm just so impressed by the people showing up, just showing up to jump, regardless of your skills or the tricks that you know or whatever. I have a lot of respect for you all showing up for 78 days and skipping. That's great. So can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about like what skipping has done for you, like physically, mentally? How has it changed things? You mentioned you were in sort of a dark place before.
Yeah, we were talking before in our
Yeah,
unrecorded
in our
conversation,
unrecorded
um,
conversation.
that
Sorry.
the state that I live in Australia, which is called Victoria, was the most locked down state in the world during COVID. So, um, I hear people say, "Oh yeah, it's so bad. We were locked down for 4 weeks," and it's like, man,
Four
oh, we were
weeks.
still having a party at week 4. Uh, we had we run my husband and I run a strength gym for older people. He's the main man. I do all the behind the scenes stuff. And our business was closed due to mandates for 39 out of 52 weeks. So
That is
not
a
only
long
was that
time.
hard for us, psychologically and financially, but also, my husband works mainly with women in their 60s and 70s, just to watch them deteriorate. Every time we were kind of open for 2 days and then closed and whatever was really hard. We'd been working with them for many years. So we got into this dark place. We sold our business. We moved towns, and we were kind of like, let's just wait this out and see what happens. And during that time, obviously, we drank what we want, we ate what we want, we weren't as active, and we got in a dark place, mentally. And then, as you kind of like get to that point where you're like, I'm kind of over this, I need to change things. I started looking at stuff online and ended up finding all these midlife women who were jumping rope because my husband is a power lifter and he was a chiropractor for many years. Um, I wanted to do something he couldn't do that was just mine. And no matter how good or bad I wasn't going to compare myself to him. So
Right, right.
I picked up the jump, I picked up the rope, and I never stopped. But from a long answer from your question, um, it definitely has had a massive, massive improvement of my mental health.
Mm.
Um, I do a lot of if I'm really struggling with something, I just jump it out. Physically, I've lost a little bit of weight, not as much as I would like because I'm still eating and drinking what I want. And I'm
Hmm.
hoping I can change that and use the tactics I've used for jumping, which is the consistency, and instead of just throwing everything out, just gradually improving and
Hmm.
putting another thing in. So that's sort of the goal for next year. But I will say I also started jumping because I've always had issues with fluid retention and
Oh,
lymphedema in my legs. And I'd read and seen online that the jumping rope helped that, and it definitely
interesting.
has.
Is that
It's
like
really,
fluid buildup?
yeah, so it really the lymphatic system draining properly. My husband, because of the work he does with older women in particular, he knew it was really good for bone density, so he was like all on board. But the really lovely thing that I wasn't expecting, and I was just talking to some of my fellow jumpers recently. Because of the sort of sluggish lymphatic system and carrying extra weight, I always had a lot of cellulite on the back of my legs.
Mm.
And it used to go all the way, down from my bum to my back of my knees.
Yeah.
And it's literally not there anymore.
Nice.
So,
Did you just notice it one day?
uh, my husband noticed it first. And he was just like, have you looked? Because you don't look at the back of yourself, do you really?
I
And
mean, I
he's like,
don't
have
look at
you
the front of
seen your
myself that
legs?
much, honestly.
He said, have you seen your legs? And I'm like, wow,
Hmm.
amazing. So that was, been a really great thing.
Yeah, that's kind of motivating too, right? Like when you see those kind of
Absolutely.
changes, like, hey, I'm going to stick with this.
Yeah, I
I,
was
I
just
had that
whinging
same
because
sort of experience as well, where just watching videos of myself, like I don't look at myself in a mirror that much, just to make sure I don't have stuff in my teeth or whatever. But where I'd watch videos and go, I've got some leg muscles now, like those, or my legs are skinnier than they were, or whatever. And sort of neat to see those changes.
where I've noticed it the most is in my legs. My legs have definitely changed shape. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, how often are you skipping, and how long do you skip? How often do you skip?
Well, when I'm doing the 100-day challenge, obviously every day, well, I jump 5 times and I usually do rope flow 2 times, but sometimes it can be less or more depending on how I'm feeling. And I really only jump, well, since I've had COVID, it's only been sort of, 5 to 7 minutes, but normally it's only 10 to 20 minutes. When I've been listening to some of your previous podcasts, I'm like, holy moly, like an hour? When you were saying you were doing 2 or 3 hours, I'm like, I'd be dead if I did that.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, if I do 2 hours, a half hour of it is just standing around switching, my playlist and goofing around, getting drinks of Gatorade or whatever, Red Bull because it gives me wings. So where are your normal and favorite places to jump?
So my most common place to jump, which you see in most of my videos, is it's actually a balcony in my house.
Oh,
Um, and I really like it because it's just decking. So it's really, it's not like concrete, so
hmm.
it really, I never feel any real impact through my joints and stuff.
Oh, good.
Um, so that's between my bed, my husband and my bedroom and my 15-year-old's bedroom. So on the weekends when I want to jump, I have to wait for him to wake up. Um, but apart from that,
Or when you want him to wake up, you start jumping.
exactly,
Right?
exactly.
He slept long enough. Thump, thump,
Yeah.
thump.
But my favorite place I've ever jumped is after I finished that first 100 days and, became really good friends with, a lot of people. Um, it was in Laura and Kathy Jumps and Em from Doc Jumps all announced that they were going to be at the New York meetup in Central Park in June this year. And it just happened to be this uncanny series of events where I had that week available. And instead of going on a family holiday that year, we were doing separate holidays. And I was like, I'm going to go. So I jumped with them
Nice.
in
Amazing.
Central Park, and we also jumped in Times Square. And it was we just had the best fun.
That is so amazing. So, and how many people did you jump with
I
when you
think there
did
was
this?
about 50 at the meetup. But there
Wow.
was a core group of us, I think it was 6 or 7 of us. We all stayed in the same hotel.
Okay.
So we just had a blast for 3 days, and
That
we were
sounds
just
so
like
amazing.
16-year-old girls at a slumber party.
So I'm curious, like I've never been to a jump rope meetup and it just sounds fun, but I also am kind of confused on how it would be organized. Actually, I'm confused on like if I were just to jump with somebody else, how you coordinate
Yeah.
stuff.
I've done both. I really love jumping. Like, so a couple of the kind of more beginner people in this 100-day challenge we're doing, we've met up and jumped, and it's been really fun. Um, at the meetup, so it depends, I think, who's organising it. So the one in New York was organised by Kathy Jumps. Um, and most of the time we were just there for the whole afternoon. We were just kind of all just winging it, doing what we want. Usually they organise a combo that is, most people can do that's pretty basic. So at some point, everyone gets together and does that. Um, and usually go out for a drink or something to eat afterwards. So
Yeah,
people seem to, whether it's by age or by skill or whatever, seem to kind of go into little groups and
sure.
do stuff.
That sounds so amazing. I can't wait to go to one of those meetups. I'm off in the hinterlands, I feel like I'm a ways away. But actually, I'm not that far away from like Chicago, and New
Well,
York's not that far
I'm
away.
New York's pretty far from me.
Yeah. Yeah,
30
what is
hours
that
door
like?
to door.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, I was gonna guess 20 something, but yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, you get off at LA and you think you're done, and then you got to go another 5 hours.
Yeah. What kind of gear do you use? Well, you mentioned jumping on your decking. Do you use a mat first of all?
I do. I use a mat. I think they're an Australian or maybe New Zealand brand. They're called Mirror Mat. I wanted a big mat. So mine's, quite a large mat, because I like to move around a fair bit on it. And yeah, that's it. And then I've got another smaller mat that I have from Elevate Ropes, which is the first one that I brought, and I leave that downstairs because sometimes I like to jump I have a big long decking down the bottom, so I like to jump on that as well.
Well, that's cool. So what about your ropes? What kind of ropes do you use? You mentioned before, like a speed rope, or that you bought a speed rope.
That's in the bin.
Yeah. Oh, you
Yeah.
actually chucked it?
I'm a beaded rope girl mainly. This is my favorite rope that I pretty much jump every day with. This is from Coach Chris, Jump Rope
Okay.
Company. He's in the UK.
It's pretty.
It's got a little bit of a thicker cord. So pretty much I jump with this every day. One of the things that people don't realise is that how much it costs to send things to Australia.
Oh my gosh.
So it costs us more than the rope to get the rope to Australia.
Probably like by three times, right? Like,
yeah. So I decided before I announced this 100-day challenge we're doing at the moment, I was just going to buy 20 ropes in bulk, because I thought that'll be the thing that stops people starting, is having to buy the rope and having to wait for it to come and it's costing a fortune in freight. And I remember my husband came home, it was like $500 worth of ropes. And he's like, what the hell did you do that for? Anyway, I've got 3 left. So he's like, okay, you were right.
that's a really cool way to handle that objection. Like, oh yeah, I gotta get a rope, whatever. Well, here you go.
I feel like a bit like a traveling salesman, because a few of my girlfriends, I might have met them down, they might be at the post office, or I've gone to Melbourne for the day, and we'd be talking about the fact I'm jumping rope. I'm like, well, I've got some in my car. Would you want one?
Let me spread the word, spread the good news.
Yeah, that's it.
So funny. So, how would you describe your jumping? Like, do you have tricks you do, moves you do? What's your favorite kind of jumping?
I'm definitely more of a footwork girl. I have attempted a couple of times for 5 minutes to start learning the mic release, and I'm not spending this much time doing this. I could be jumping. So I always just go back to footwork. Definitely music is a big influence. And I like jumping, it might not be fast in pro standards, but it's probably faster than a lot of people my age like to jump. So I'm sort of around 140 BPM I like to jump. I find jumping slower actually really, really hard, and much harder on my joints. Yeah.
Is that because when you jump slower, you actually end up jumping higher? Like, I know for me, like sometimes when I'm jumping really fast, I don't pick, it's more like box or step, kind of keep my feet really low. Yeah,
maybe. I haven't kind of looked at it that way. I just think that it's just a natural momentum and natural rhythm speed for me. And I kind of, like my handle suggests, Peter Pocket Rocket. I've been called that since I'm only 4'11". So.
Oh my gosh! Really?
Yeah.
I was going to ask the origins of your name, so you can kind of fit in somebody's pocket.
Exactly. But I kind of have that small dog syndrome, so I make up for it in my intensity. So, everything I do is not. I'm not tepid. Let's just say that.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, what was the hardest thing for you to learn? Like once you started jumping?
Honestly, I still struggle with boxer step. Still struggle with it. I'd rather shuffle than do boxer step. So, and I find that when I'm learning something new, I've learnt now not to get into that really serious, thing where I start to then not want to pick the rope up the next day. So I only really learn.
Once you start swearing at it, you got to put it down.
Well, there's one of my stories actually today saying it was the cleanest one. I think it was an outtake of a reel I did yesterday or the day before, and it says, "What's your problem?" but normally it's much worse than that. But yeah, I find that I have to like kind of cycle around things that have been annoying me. So like I'll try boxer step again for a little while, and then I mean I can do it, but I just can't do it for very long, and it still takes a lot of effort. And then I'll come back to it on a day where, say, maybe everything else is working really well.
Do you, you mentioned you're a beaded girl. Do you have PVC ropes as well? Like,
I do. I've only really used the PVC rope to do double unders. And then once I realized that I could do double unders, I haven't used it since. So I kind of wanted to tick that off. But I know if I did double unders regularly, like my knees don't like it. So I don't do them very often. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the reasons I ask is like you mentioned that the cord in your rope is heavier, and some of my ropes are the same. I have heavier cords and they're beefier and all the way around. And what I found is I can jump with one of those for half hour or an hour and then switch to a PVC rope. And like the boxer step thing, I could be struggling with the beaded rope, and then with the PVC rope, it's 5 millimeters, or it's just really thin, and I can go fast, and I don't have to pick my feet up that much, and that helps, or at least it makes me feel like I'm doing better.
I used to do that actually when I first started. I've got another beaded rope from Elevate Ropes that I actually made a little bit too short. And so I hardly ever use it. But now, because I haven't used it for months, it's probably the right length now. I'm going to do that when something's not working, try my other beaded rope and my PVC. Thank you for that.
Sure. How do you size your ropes? Like, do you
just
know
by
exactly
feel.
what your size is?
Well, this one here is the kind of one I measure all the others off. So this one I know is the right length. Took a while to kind of get it to where I want. But I also find too, like I've got some cross ropes. So sometimes when I don't want to think, I'll just, go through the different weights and do ladders with cross ropes. And in Australia, just until very recently, there was Crossropes Australia, and they only went down to an extra small. And it was still too long for me. So I had to do a special order to the States to get the extra small. But I find with those, because you can't adjust them, it's probably just that little bit too short. So I can't do a lot of tricks. So the more tricks I want to do, a little bit longer, I need to have the rope. Yeah.
So when, do you size by stepping on the center of the rope and then holding it up?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And where do you aim for?
This one here, I don't know, it probably goes up to about, just under, maybe an inch under my armpit.
Okay.
So it's probably still, relatively long.
I actually, once I found my size, I counted the beads. Like a lot of my ropes have 2-inch beads. So I know exactly how many beads, 42 I need. It's 84 inches, and that's how I size my ropes.
Well, I keep telling people that, I only need 3 ropes, and all the beads I take off, I can make an extra.
Yeah. Oh, I've totally done that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you cycle through beaded ropes, or that you mentioned that's your baby?
This is my baby. And because 95% of the time I jump on a mat, they don't really get that messed up. But I've got a couple of spares, and this one here, I don't know how many times people comment, where did you get that rope from? It's called Prismatic is the color. So I've got, because I remember Coach Chris sold out of them, so I got a couple of extras so that when this one wears out, I got a new one.
Nice. That sounds like something I would do.
Yeah.
I have, in fact, this is an extra of one of my favorites, Kermit. And so I had to build 2 of them because Kermit's just too good. Have you faced any injuries or challenges as you've been learning? Like, aside from the COVID challenge, which is crazy.
Yeah. I think one of the great things is that I've, consistently done strength training for a number of years. So my body had, that integrity around my joints and things. So I think that's always stood me in good stead. And also because I'd rather jump 10, 15 minutes a day than do big, long sessions. I'm someone that if I skip a couple of days, you know, I go down that slippery slope of, I can't really be bothered today. So I know for me that skipping or flowing every day is the way to keep going. So I think because I haven't done, you know, I just hadn't had the fitness to do really long workouts has probably helped me not get injured. I had, you know, the classic sort of niggly knees and things when I started, mainly the backs of my knees actually, and my calves and that sort of thing, but nothing that kind of was anything serious. The COVID thing has been the biggest thing, and it's like when I started the first 100 days in January, it's like the universe just goes, right, what are we going to put in here? So we moved house during that time. I had to care for someone who was really seriously mentally ill. There's just so many things going on. And then I announced the second 100 days, and I think it was about 30 days in, I got COVID. So, yeah.
I'm sorry. That's no fun. I've had it once, and it just wiped me out. That was my big symptom, was I just felt like tired. I think I slept for about a week, it felt like.
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing that's happening. Yeah.
Yeah. So you jump to music?
Absolutely. I was saying to you off air. Not really. I did at the start, and I was mainly just kind of making playlists of, you know, like 80s pop music and stuff I grew up with. But now I tend to jump, because I'm making a reel every day, I tend to jump to the same song over and over.
Oh, okay.
So I pick a song and I just have it on repeat, because I'm only jumping for, 10 minutes or so. It's not like I'm listening to it all day.
So when
and
you
if
say
I feel
over
it's
and
not
over,
working,
like over and over the same day, but like the next day you might listen to a different song?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So whatever I'm going to do, whatever music I'm going to do the reel to, I listen to that song, 3, 4, 5 times, however long the song is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do the same thing, and sometimes, like I did it today, I realized that one of the videos that I took was like a half hour of me just jumping to the song over and over and over again. Sometimes it's just that it's fun, or sometimes I'm working on something, but yeah, I just have a lot of fun.
See, I hate wearing earphones while I'm jumping. So the family gets to hear the same song over and over again. And then straight after is when I make the reel, so they get to hear it over and over again.
You had a really fantastic reel that I saw, and you're jumping in what looks like a street area or an alley or something where there's like graffiti or murals behind, and it's just really colorful and pretty. And it's got men at work on it, like down under.
Totally.
Which is awesome.
Well, that's in Melbourne, which is kind of the New York of Australia.
Okay.
So that's my closest capital city, and that whole laneway is quite famous. And actually, my 15-year-old was telling me the other day that it's now legal to do graffiti there, and encouraged, as long as you're over 18. So, yeah. And I think there's a Banksy there. There's lots of famous graffiti artists that have worked there. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that was so pretty. Do you always like travel with a jump rope so that you've got one at the ready to just jump out the car and do your thing?
Yeah. I've traveled, being fortunate to travel a lot around the world, and as I've got older, and I've streamlined the process to the point of we went and travelled through Turkey and Greece and Spain for 9 weeks with just carry-on luggage.
Wow.
And I'm really pissed off because I now have to go back to having checked-in luggage, because I have all of these jump ropes that people think I'm going to strangle them with on the plane. So often I've had them taken off me.
Oh, no kidding.
So you got to check them into... Yeah, got to check them into the luggage. So there goes that plan.
What's your favorite aspect of jumping rope? Like, obviously there's the health sort of stuff and the mental health stuff, but Do you like tricks? Obviously, you listen to music.
Yeah. So I'm definitely a footwork girl. Um, I can't remember if we talked about this off air or earlier in the
Yeah.
interview, but I tried to start learning the mic release, and I was just like, this is freaking boring. I'm going back to jumping. So I know at one point I'll get to releases, but I've still got a whole lot of footwork to learn, and I'm happy with that. And I love to dance, so you'll always see that on my reels as well.
Hmm.
And just laugh at myself all the time, how ridiculous, some of the things I do. So, jump rope
That's
has
wonderful.
definitely helped me not be too serious about myself. Um, and the more I can get my teenage sons to cringe at my reels, the better.
That's so great. You mentioned you don't like jumping with earphones on. The problem I have is I do, and they're noise canceling. And so I'm, just really into the music. And so things will go on around me that I have no idea are happening. Like I've watched video later and realized that there's people running by me and I had no, or biking by me. Interestingly, today I was jumping on a limestone bench doing my thing, and this couple came by and they had this huge mastiff that was just gorgeous, and he had this big red toy in his mouth. He was so happy. And I commented on, I said, he's got to be like 75 pounds or whatever. And the lady said, he's like 102 or 105. Like, that is a
Wow.
big dude. And I said, what's his name? And she said, COVID. I said, no shit. No shit. His name was COVID. I think a lot of people
How many
adopted
dogs?
animals during,
Going to say how many people got dogs in COVID? Um, it's funny, my dog, he's in some of my reels as well. So a lot of people know my dog Remy. He's nearly 9, but even he got a shock when COVID finished because it's like, what do you mean you're leaving the house? What do you mean I got to be here by myself for half an
right,
hour?
right. For half an hour. So, how do you stay motivated on days when you don't feel like jumping? I mean, you made this commitment for 100 days, but I got to imagine some days, especially when you're sick, you just don't feel like getting out there, right?
Yeah. Um, it there's actually a reel recently. Well, I've had COVID for 4 weeks. Kind of early on in when I had COVID, of me in my dressing gown actually. um, I don't know if you call them dressing gowns over there, like pajama
Pajamas, kind
robe
of. Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
right.
Um, I think there's two actually. And it was a really interesting time for me because I was like, I'm telling all these people in this 100-day challenge, just show up. It doesn't matter. Da, da, da. Like, well, I got to sort of like walk the talk. So I just did. And but I was really, really open and honest about where I was at and that, I couldn't do much. So it was like hold my breath and press post.
Hmm. Good for you. That's so great about showing up. Do you like? Do you have goals that you're trying to with your jump rope progress? You mentioned you're a footwork girl. Do you have certain types of footwork that you're looking to learn more of, or?
Yeah, so we all in the 100-day group that I'm in at the moment, we all decided on 5 goals that we wanted to do.
Oh, okay.
One of mine was to do the EB jump. So I can do an EB swing, and I can jump doing an EB swing, but I haven't been able to jump through it. And then the
Can
other
you
was an
describe
open
that
crop.
for those of us who don't?
So an EB jump is when you do an EB swing, which is one hand behind your back and the other one goes over.
Okay.
Well, actually, that's an underhand, overhand. It's that way,
Yeah.
and you jump through it.
Yeah.
Um, and the other is the open swings. So I can do southpaw swings, or I don't. Some people call them different things. And it took me a long time to learn those. And now trying to do an open swing where you put your hand on the bottom rather than the top
Hmm.
um, has actually been really difficult. So I can do it really slow, but I want to be able to do it really well.
Hmm.
Um, and there's a couple of others. I had Mick Release on there, and I very, very quickly wiped that off the list. But just actually want to get fitter, really.
Yeah.
And that's what COVID's been stopping me. But I can, I still really, really can't get to 1,000 jumps. You know, like I don't mean continuously, but like in one, you know, workout where you're not stopping for long, you're just kind of like getting your heart rate back. You know, I can get to 7, 8, you know, pretty easily, but 1,000 is still really hard for me. In one go,
how are you
like
counting your jumps?
I have a Garmin watch,
Okay.
and it has you don't get it with the watch, but there's an app you can put on for jump rope. So I don't know how accurate it is, but it tells me how many jumps I've done.
Oh, that's cool.
So I could do, you know, a couple of thousand over a day, but in one, I want to be able to do it in one sort of go with just, you know, a few breaks.
What frustrates you most about jumping rope? Like you mentioned having trouble with the mic release and just kind of giving up on it, but when do you get
That
frustrated?
doesn't frustrate me. I just go, this is bullshit.
Yeah, you
I
just
don't want
checked
to do
out,
this.
right?
My fitness level, that's what frustrates me, because I actually have the coordination, and it doesn't really take me long to learn something. Like when I hear how long it takes some people to learn things, I'm like, it don't even take me that long. But then to actually have the stamina to keep perfecting it and refining it, that's what I get frustrated with.
Yeah. Yeah, that can be tough. You mentioned laughing at yourself, and I'm so glad you did, because I laugh at myself constantly. What do you laugh at yourself about?
My mum dancing, you know, like this middle-aged woman who's pretending she's, you know, back in the nightclub. Mainly that, or just like sometimes I would just come up with, like, I never plan anything I'm going to do, and then I just think, all right, I'm going to go jump. What am I going to do? And I might come up with something like really ridiculous, and I think, now, have I gone too far this time? Like, is this like too, is this too out there? And is everyone going to go, oh, she's lost it now?
Right.
So that's kind of how I crack myself up.
Yeah, that's hilarious. One of the things we talked about, the headphones, because I've got noise canceling headphones on and I don't always know what's going on around me, there are times where I've been frustrated and I've used colorful metaphor, you know, a little swearing here and there. And it happened once where I was jumping on this limestone bench. There's this big, like, bank of trees behind which there are these bike paths. And so these mountain bikers will go zip around back there. And I thought I was out there alone, and I was jumping, and I got mad, and I said some bad words with my earphones in, and I looked up to see this family just rounding the corner, and they all looked like they'd come from Sunday dinner or something. My heart sank. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that happens to me. Up until we just moved into a new house right in town, in the village, about 6 months ago. For the past 15 years, we've lived on acreage, and I forget. And so I forget that all the neighbours can, because I'm out on a balcony, they can hear what I'm saying. And actually, I think it was Becky, or I can't remember, someone else you had on the podcast was talking about swearing, and she had an FFS that she put on, and I sent her a message and I said, "Is this what you're talking about?" She goes, "That's exactly what I'm talking about."
Yeah, that's hilarious.
So normally when I come down from the balcony, because all the family can hear what I'm doing up there, like, "You okay? What can you get?"
It sounded like you had a little bit of deck rage there, Peta. Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious. I've also done the thing where I think that I'm being quiet, but I'm listening to music and I'm humming along with it, or I'm singing. And oftentimes, or not oftentimes, but sometimes when I've got stuff jammed in my ears, my singing isn't great. You know, like I go back and I watch the video and I'm like, what are you warbling about, buddy? I want to know more about how the jump rope community affected you, or has affected you. You mentioned you've got this group of women that you've been doing this challenge with. How else has the jump rope community worked on you?
I wouldn't be jumping still if it wasn't for the community. Because I've worked from home for the last 15 years in our own businesses, you know, and obviously painting in my own studio. You know, I spend a lot of time by myself, and I've always lived in small towns as well. So, you know, there isn't sort of like a class to go to, or that type of thing, you know, on a regular basis. So it's kind of been my social outlet as well. Um, and I don't know, I don't know if you find it with, your mates, but when you get to a certain age, I feel like people kind of go one way or the other. They kind of go down the cynical, bitter, gossiping, let's just drink more wine and, eat more pizza kind of route. Or they go, do you know what? I'm sick of feeling like shit. I want to feel good. I want to make people around me feel good. And I just felt like that's what the jump rope community did for me. Like, I'm like, there are all these people out here who are actually, when you say positive things, I don't think you're taking the piss out of them. Like you're being genuine, you're being sincere. And I've just found that really, really refreshing.
Isn't it amazing?
And
I just love it to
yeah,
pieces.
yeah. And I know it's real because, you know, people say, online is it's not the same as real life, but it's the first time because all my painting business and everything was online through Instagram, and I never had the connections that I have with the jump rope community, and I was doing that for years. And then particularly going to New York in June and like really meeting these people in person and going, no, it is real, and these people are real, and I've just found it's the best part of my day.
Yeah, it is really amazing. Yeah, and it's amazing how it's just relentlessly positive. Like there's no policing needed, or at least in the places that I hang out in Instagram. Like there's never anybody who's like, oh, gotta oust them or something like that. Everybody's just, hey, let's make each other better. We're
I've got a YouTube channel called Gen X Diaries, and one of the first videos I did on there was how 7 foot of rope changed my life. And I think by saying that, I don't know what it is, but when you jump up and down, you just feel like a nicer person. And I honestly believe that the reason, there's lots of reasons, but one of the reasons why people are so positive in the JRC is because they're moving their body. And so they don't have this stagnant, we all have bad days and bad moods,
sure.
but, on the whole, you can kind of keep perspective on life because you're moving your body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. We talked a little bit about mental health benefits before. Can you talk more specifically about the mental health benefits that you've got?
Yeah, I haven't suffered a lot of like really serious stuff, for a long time. I did suffer with a condition I know called PMDD, which is like a really severe version of premenstrual syndrome. So, like how women get grumpy before their period. Well, I just want to kind of die. And actually, there's another jump roper in the community. She's actually more of a flow roper. What is her handle? She's very open about the condition as well. But that's all under control now. But I think just that inertia, like because I don't have a boss that I have to turn up for, or, I've kind of, looking after kids and doing stuff for the business, and I was painting and moving house, and um, I didn't have a lot of structure, so it gave me that structure, and then allowed me to kind of, feel in control of something. So I think mentally it was really good for me, and also mentally really good for me for my identity because a lot of what I've done has been wrapped up in my husband's work and his kind of, I've been Dean's wife for a very long time, and it's very nice to be Peter.
Yeah.
So now when I see people down the street, they talk about my jump rope reels. They don't talk about what Dean's doing in the gym. So it's
That's
been really
awesome.
nice for me to kind of have my own identity as well.
Yeah, that's lovely. I love to hear that. So you are working with a bunch of people who are relatively new to jump rope in your 100 days of skipping. I'm curious, what would you tell new people who are thinking about jumping rope? Especially like, it sounds like you've got a niche in working with people who are maybe over 50 or around that age. So what would you tell a lady who's thinking, yeah, should I do what Pete is doing?
I would just say go for it, but you have to be okay with not being really good to start with. And I think another reason why I started was because, which a lot of people on your podcast so far have said, have been really all or nothing people. And I've been that in most areas of my life. And I've also been a really, really good starter and a really crap finisher. So I think by, for people who are starting out to actually not look at this as a 30-day thing, or not feel silly to say it's going to be a big part of their life. Like, it's okay to commit to something and say, I'm just going to keep on going, and to make sure that they get involved in the JRC community, the jump rope community online, so that someone's noticing what they're doing and someone knows when they haven't been around for a while. I think that people need to feel that, someone's looking out for them. So to join the community and to just start off really small and really basic, and realize that you're running your own race.
Mm-hmm. So when you encounter new jumpers, how do you tell them to learn? Or like, do they ever say, hey, should I, join a club, or should I, download an app? Or how do you tell people to?
Yeah, if they're local to me, then I say, hey, come down and we'll, have a little go together. I just had 5 other girlfriends that we all turned 50 in the same year. We went all the way through school together. Some of them I've known since I was 4 years old.
Oh my
And we just
goodness.
had a weekend away. It's one of my reels from about, a month and a half ago. And so I just brought my jump ropes, and I'm like, right, who's going to jump with me today? Because I've got to jump. So that's how I do that.
Did you recruit people? Did you get them to
Yeah,
jump with you?
I did.
Good for
Yep.
you.
If it's online, I just sort of send them the stuff that I started learning with, and they end up going down the rabbit hole. I also have in my highlights a start here that I set up when I started the 100-day challenge. I'm not in any way, shape or form interested in becoming a coach at all. It just takes you off to different people's tutorials and stuff about how to do your rope. None of it's my material. I've just put it all in his highlights.
Sure.
So that everyone can use it. So that's kind of how I get people going. But the main thing that I do is just hype. Do a lot of hype. A lot of
That's amazing. That's one of the things that makes the jump rope community great. And I've seen you do that online, and that's wonderful. Cheering people on feels so good, doesn't it?
I grew up in a household where fun was not really a thing, and anything beyond work was kind of, a waste of time. So it's taken me a long time to unlearn those habits and become pretty much the opposite of that. So I see it in other people, and I just want them to realize it doesn't have to be so serious.
Well, that's one of the things I love about watching your reels is you always look like you're having a ball. You always look like you're having fun, and you're just being Peta, and I just think that's awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking to me. I really appreciate it, and we'll keep connected on Instagram. Any last words for the jump rope community?
I just want to say thank you to you for starting up this podcast, because I agree with what you said about why you started it, is that, you can start to know people online, but a 15-second story or a reel doesn't sort of give you the depth to get to know people. So I've really enjoyed watching and listening to the episodes you've already done, and I've got to know people a bit more. And one thing I learned from the people I met in New York is the people I thought were going to be my people and the fun people, they were lovely, but other people who were really quiet online were actually the fun people. So you kind of learn a little bit more with what you're doing. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for listening, and thank you for posting about it. I really appreciate the support. This has been so much fun, and I just am tickled to have had you on and been able to talk to you from all the way down under.
Well, yes, my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Sure. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in to Skip Squad Chronicles. I'm having a lot of fun, and I really appreciate your support. You can help out by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts and giving us a good rating. That helps with visibility. Tell a friend, and even send in some feedback through the website at skipsquadchronicles.com. Thanks so much. Happy hopping.